director of dispatch. I have the tapes of it, and really just turned it into a learning opportunity. So the members will get the first 20 minutes Thursday night of the fire to listen to get better radio traffic, incident command. Thank you for the offer. They're going to train on their end. What did transpire, just so you know briefly, they lost 3 members, Androscoggin County Dispatch Sheriff. They lost 3 members recently to other jobs, and they decided to drop down to 2 individuals at night, 2 dispatchers. I mean, this call came in at 9 and 11 on a Saturday night. There was only 2 of them. They were running multiple medicals, an overdose, 911 trying to give help over the phone, the fire, and it was only 2 members. So I requested on the radio that they call in a member specifically for this call because it was going to be long term, and again, 10 hours. So we're all learning. But thank you. I think Durham was okay, and the equipment's there, but difficult. I did offend them. Hopefully, it didn't get to you, but I went around dispatch. An old trick is to just leave dispatch out of it. So instead of calling them or whatever resources, I just got on the radio and called all the other resources and became my own dispatcher, standing in the driveway. It seemed to work because it cuts down on time. The lead time, since Durham is sort of in that pocket of counties, we had as far away as New Gloucester, North Yarmouth, that type of stuff. So the lead time for them to call Cumberland, for Cumberland to call North Gloucester, New Gloucester and North Yarmouth, just takes a while. So we tried to cut that in half. And then everyone signs on, and we're en route with how many people, we're on scene, that type of thing. So we'll learn from it.
I got one question for you, Chief. Could you just explain, so folks listen and know what you mean when you say you hired 3 residents recently?
Sure. As volunteers, members have seen the need, so a couple of drivers, and then a young lady received her EMT or national EMT and wants to start working with us. So ride time, per diem, eventually she'll be going to school to be a physician's assistant, but wants that 911 medical experience. So we do hire from outside of the town. These were just 3 residents that saw the need, came to us, going through the process. Not that it's lengthy, but it takes weeks and weeks to
so
get signed off.
clarification, I was looking for this. Residents means they literally live in Durham.
They
It's not like they're a
literally
resident at the fire station.
No, they literally live in
Sure,
Durham,
folks know.
which we appreciate.
Yeah.
Because the response time is less.
Anything else? No? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Kevin started, I understand it's quiet for so long.
Last meeting too, he's gearing up.
Good evening, Calvin.
Good evening. So after the last meeting, I issued warning lights, they were not working, so we started working on them and called the company directly to talk with the engineering department. By the time we were troubleshooting it before we could even get into it really, that they came back on. So they explained to me that once the battery gets below, like it's a marine battery, so once it gets down to a certain level, it kills it, and then it will come back on an hour or 2 later. So there might be an hour or 2 where I'm thinking that perhaps in the future we should probably just tap into a pole there and run power to it. Other than that, we could perhaps put a second battery backup for that one, but that's, to me, it's like,
Follow those red signs might work better.
well, yeah, I just, yeah, so what happens, it was just cloudy for so many days that as soon as the sun pops up, but even without the sun coming up, they'll come back on, even if it's cloudy, because the marine battery is set to recharge itself and come back on. So you would think, well, it can't be the sun because it came back on without sun. But that's just how it works. So I don't know what to say other than, I mean, I guess you could argue that if people begin to rely on those, we probably ought to have them working all the time, and not only when it's sunny. But I guess guess that's something you guys have to decide, but running power, obviously would be another power meter and another light bill, digging up conduit to get to it, so there'd be some costs associated with that. So I'm gonna check and see if we can add a second battery for backup and see what that would cost and give you two different options, but I will be looking into it. So we've been working on lawns, cemeteries, typically by now we've got nothing but brown out there and mowing is very sporadic and it hasn't been the case this year, so. Been busy doing that. The gravel roads have been taking a beating because of all the rain. As you know, when it rains, you get potholes, and that's what's happening on the gravel roads. We're out chasing those, and so that's certainly taken up some time. Beavers on DeWitt Hill Road, they've decided they want to block a culvert down on DeWitt Hill, so we have to go pull all that out and get our wading gear on and put up metal grates, and haven't. It seems to be working for right now, that they've deterred them. Don't know how long that will last. We'll monitor it. We've been ditching up on Quaker Meeting House Road, getting through the power lines on both sides. That whole section was never really ditched, and you can see the wheel ruts are sagging in there, and the pavement's cracking through that whole section, and you can see the wetland vegetation growing right up on the side of the road because the water. So we've ditched the eastbound lane last week, and it's still pouring water right down through the ditch. So that's how much groundwater is coming out of there. I've been working with DEP, St. Laurent Sons to coordinate the swamp road, stream crossing. So it's basically a bridge. It's going to have a bridge deck. It's going to have concrete abutments with a bridge deck span. So, and apparently that used to be a bridge because the old abutments are still in there on either side. They got replaced with culverts at some point when it blew out back in the day. I've been working with DOT and Shaw Brothers on the 125 bridge. That issue of traffic being stopped at that light, we always have problems with vehicles being able to get up that hill. And when one gets stuck, it's a compound problem because now everybody else is stuck, and then if you're coming down the hill the other way, you're sliding into what's there. So that's always been very difficult to keep. And so if you've got 6 or 7 cars lined up sitting there at a red light, and now all of a sudden they're all going to go, there's going to be somebody in that crowd that can't navigate the hill. It's got all tired or something, and now you've got, instead of having one car stuck, you're going to have multiple cars stuck. And then if that light times out, they're going to start coming from the top down, and now you're really going to have a problem. So
Are you talking about in the winter?
yes.
Okay.
During the snow event, snow and ice.
Yeah.
So I voiced that concern that all of a sudden, I said, well, geez, this could be a problem this winter if we're going to be stopping people right here and then them all taking off at once. So they've assured me that they're going to do whatever it takes to keep that from happening. So one of the things that we're going to do is widen that out so I can get a truck with a wing through, so that I can. Otherwise, my plow route would have to stop there, and the plow would have to go all the way back up around and come in from 6 or 7 miles to come back from the other side. So they're going to make sure we can get through there. And if they said if they have to put a one-ton truck there to keep it plowed, that they will do that if they have to. But they're hoping that we can keep it as usual, but if they help us out. So our Ford 550 is they're working on it today, putting the lights on. We're working on getting a wiring extension from Wayland to put the light up on the headboard so that you can see the lights front and back. Otherwise, if they're on the roof of the truck, the headboard blocks it from the back. So they should be done with that this week. We've completed the roadside mowing, handed the machine off to Pownell, saved us $400 in towing charge, hauling charge. So Pownell will split that. We got a bill for $400. They'll get a bill for $400. And that's what I got.
Great. Thank you, Calvin.
Okay.
Joe, you have a question?
Yeah, when you said that you guys put up some grading over there around the Beaver Dam on DeWitt Road, what did you just put grading across the pipe?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Cause, have you ever worked with like IF&W on beaver deceivers?
Well, we work with IFW, but the beavers don't go away.
Yeah.
That's our next goal, and that's
Yeah.
when
Yeah, cause just my expert, I would suspect that they'll be back.
Yeah.
And
Well-
they're pretty persistent, so I think that there's a good resource there.
not a typical spot that we have problems with beavers. It's kind of odd that they picked that spot this year, and
Yeah, they move.
no rhyme or reason as to why they picked that spot, so.
Mhm.
But if it continues to be a problem, we'll look into it.
Maybe
Newburgh's too big of a culvert now to deal with.
Yeah.
Go with something smaller.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about the crossing on Swamp Road. Has anyone like spec'd out what that's gonna look like? Do they have plans that they
No.
can share with folks and stuff like that? Cause I was just
No.
interested on the sizing of it.
That's all engineered. Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
have to go through an extensive Army Corps of Engineers.
Mhm.
They had to basically redo it all to meet their, you've got to have so much capacity above the water for debris flow.
Mhm.
So we had to meet all the new rules, which
Yeah.
basically we had to oversize it considerably compared to what we normally would have put in.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was wondering about. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Calvin.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Calvin, I just want to say thank you for checking into the lights. When I went through this week, they were working. It caught me by surprise a little bit because when I came down around the corner, there was a car stopped there because the light was working, waiting for me to come down through. So I appreciate you following up on that, like, in a very fast time frame and taking care of it.
Well, we were there the next day. But unfortunately, I'd like to say I fixed it, but all I did was show up and started to look at it and I came back on. So I don't know, long term, if you guys wanna talk about, what you'd like to see for a solution, or, if you guys are okay with that, at having times when I have some concerns with getting people used to depending on something and then it not working sometimes, you're kind of,
Mhm.
you're kind of sending a message that it's safe and
Right.
perhaps isn't, so.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to put out there for us to consider.
So I think if we could grab power from a pole or two there, but I'll get some costs together and.
I mean,
share
would
with you.
it be worth at least putting out a notice to the town that might not always be working? Cause if you have someone who does commute there daily and they count on that being right, they now don't think to use their first step of just observing.
Well,
Might
if
be worth
it's,
sharing that information.
if it's flashing, you can be assured there's a car coming.
Yeah, yeah, but if you're-
If it's not flashing,
Right.
don't be assured there isn't a car.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, yeah, I can put that out there and have Kimberly put it out there.
Just
See
a
what
thought.
you say.
Maybe if we have 6 consecutive weeks of rain again, it's
Yeah.
worth, but if we kind of stay like,
We'll monitor it a little bit and I'll get some options for a fix and see what goes.
thank you,
Thank you,
Calvin.
Calvin. Okay. Gary?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things, just to keep you up to date, Royer Accountants and Associates are now fully on board. They are handling everything now financially. AP, payroll, main payers, they got it. It's working pretty good now. I hope to have soon, we're still collecting data and trying to get everything finalized, and hopefully we'll be sharing financial reports with you as soon as he gets everything straightened out. With that said, I'm working with Mark and Jen Connors and Mark Hay on the audit. The audit is almost complete. Them two are working together to get to a baseline. I'm working, I got a call with Jen tomorrow. She has some questions for me about the report, so we'll get that wrapped up. Typically, I know last year's report came in August, but typically our report doesn't take 7 or 8 months to get that. It's just been a lot of work for that. So, I mean, basically Jen's auditing her own work from the year before, because they don't have the talent in here to kind of do those financial statements that Mark and Jen can do so that's what they're working on. I am gonna meet with Paul first tomorrow, actually tomorrow morning, to go over the CIP process, just to get out in front of that. I won't be here the first 2 weeks of October, I'm going to Ireland, so that kind of falls right in the CIP process, so may bump it the last 2 weeks of September, just to get it going. But that's why I'm gonna meet with the chair to see if we can come up with a good schedule that will work for everybody.
Right.
I'm also still working with Efficiency Maine on the lightings for our buildings. That deadline for that application is the end of August. So we have Enterprise Electric over in Lisbon, who's a qualified contractor through Efficiency Maine. They've done all the assessments. They're trying to still get pricing for the fixtures and whatnot, so they can put the price together. But hopefully I'll hear from them by the end of the week, because it's really up to them to actually submit the application to Efficiency Maine to work with them all the time. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm hoping this gets finalized. And then, that doesn't mean we do anything, because there is gonna be an upfront cost to us if we end up doing this. And there's a timetable for that too, I gotta work with Efficiency Maine on that. So other than that, things are going good in here. We're all full steam ahead, no issues. That's about it.
Great. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay, thanks. If you don't know this answer yet, that's fine. When we see the reports, do you know what that's gonna look like?
I don't yet.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I don't.
I was just wondering if it's gonna show like what we started with, and then like what percentage of that
It should.
has been spent?
That's typical
Okay.
in a municipal,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, thank you.
financial report.
All right. And we're probably ready for the folks from Casella to come on up. Why don't you guys
Sure.
come on up and, all of you grab a third chair with you there. So you can introduce yourselves and put yourselves in front of the microphone.
Jim, I can just speak.
Absolutely, yeah,
So-
absolutely, Jerry.
So the reason why I wanted to bring Casella in, I think it was last fall, Chris came in and talked to myself, Calvin, and Kevin. And it was a pretty informative discussion on trash, garbage, where we're going. And because we're in our extension 1 year, we're gonna have to decide on what we're gonna do moving forward. And I just wanted you folks to hear their story on the garbage. And this is in no way am I promoting, advocating, or anything to sell it, but they're in the business. They're one of the big dogs. So if you have questions regarding trash, garbage, pickup, where it's going, these folks are the ones to ask the question, and that's why I wanted to bring them in and have them share information with you.
Great.
That's all.
Yes, I think that the biggest thing from our discussion.
Can you just?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Chris McHale. I am the market area manager for Casella Waste in southern Maine, which covers from, about the Maine, New Hampshire border up towards, we have locations in West Bath, in Lewiston, Auburn area. My territory goes up to about the Gardner area, and I cover that territory. If you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Mark Haley. I'm the ops manager out of West Bath, which is transfer station and hauling division. So I actually am the ops manager in charge of the current trash collection in Durham, the split body truck and the crews. So nice to meet you.
My name is Talia Ben. I'm the municipal account manager, so I work closely with Mark and Chris to help manage all of the municipal contracts that we have in Southern Maine.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Talia.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Sure. So the big portion of our conversation was we came in and we discussed doing an extension that would ultimately hope to lead to a longer term contract, or whether you guys want to put it out for an RFP or however you want to do it, but with an automated collection, which would be a different collection style than what you're normally used to seeing. The automated collection is a truck that comes, everybody gets 2 bins, every resident gets 2 bins, usually two 64-gallon totes, one for trash, one for recycling. Still, it's a split body truck, so it's one truck picking up both bins, and it separates. And instead of having somebody hang off the back of a truck and, you know, jump off and have to manually do that collection, there's an arm on the side of the truck that goes out, it collects it, dumps it in, and then picks up the recycling. And it's a more efficient manner, it's, of collection, it's where the industry is going, in what we've seen from the, you know, the larger, companies. Casella is not, we're not doing long-term reload collection, contracts anymore. Primarily, you know, the safety is our biggest concern when it comes to, the automated collection. The guys who ride on the backs of those trucks, are put in harm's way every day that they go out. You know, especially with more and more cell phone, communication, they're sitting at the back of the truck, relying on the person who's pulling up behind them not to know what they're doing and not slamming into the back of them. We deal with a number of injuries, but with that style of collection, we currently, every day in the market that I oversee, we're sending out 35 to 40 individuals on the backs of trucks every day. I would say at any given time, we're probably dealing with, you know, 5 to 6 workers' comp injuries out of that group. And they're legit injuries. They are, you know, if you do that type of work, you're gonna get a strain, you're gonna get, you know, you're gonna pull some muscles and lastly, you know, doing that style, it's become really difficult for us to employ people who want to ride on the back of a truck. We use, out of that 35 to 40 that we're doing every day, I would say we employ probably 50 to 60% given on the week. It's very high turnover, and you know, I say we employ about 50% of them. The other 50% are coming from a staffing agency. We tend to go to Lewiston for this area and get temp laborers for the day to put on the backs of the trucks. That comes with a number of challenges, and you know, it's just a job in this society that is going away, and it's really difficult to employ those people. So the automated collection is what we're really pushing for most municipalities, and in the direction we're going as a company for our collection styles is that style of truck. For the town, that means, you know, education, which we help with. It means, you know, we have to figure out purchasing of bins for the residents and how we want to handle that. There's different ways we can do that. There's different grants out there based off recycling that is available to municipalities. And so yeah, so that's kind of my overview of automated collection. You know, it's not much different than what happens today. You know, there's a little bit more on the resident to make sure that they're putting the bins out where, you know, separated 3 feet apart. But that all happens through the education process. We're currently transitioning, you know, we have 7 municipalities that we work with right now who have signed contracts to transition from a rear load to an automated collection. You know, keeping in mind that, you know, depending on when that decision's made, it takes, we're seeing at least 12 to 18 months to get the truck. So there would be continued rear load service if that's the direction you end up going in until a truck can arrive. We're saying 12, it's really been closer to 18 months lately. It's pretty, the trucks are, I don't know if you guys have had to order any trucks lately, but in that style of truck that we order, which is the split body truck, which is the most efficient, so we can pick up both commodities, trash and recycling at the same time. That's a more difficult truck to get, which you know, extends that time period of getting that. So that's my automated discussion. So that's you know, what we're going to discuss going forward, and hopefully you know, be able to come to some type of agreement.
Anybody have any questions? Jerry? Tipping fees, where do you see tipping fees going? Are they gonna level off or more? Or what are municipalities facing there? I mean, we've seen some towns in the area just not even do the same as sewing anymore because of.
Oh, on the recycling side, yeah, so you have the city of Auburn recently did that. We're hoping to, with their next contract to reinstate that. They have a favorable disposal rate on their MSW because of being the host community for Maine Waste Energy. So the difference between their trash and their recycling disposal is a little more than what most municipalities see. The recycling if I had the crystal ball, I would look into it, but the recycling market it fluctuates. It's similar to any of the commodity markets like metal, and it moves. We've seen it bounce back a little bit lately than what it got really bad at the end of this year, and then we're seeing it bounce back a little bit, but it's still I think you guys are up at around $120 a ton right now, paying for recycling, which is more than what the trash is. So I don't know 100% on the recycling. The MSW as well. I mean, obviously you guys took a big jump on the disposal costs for the trash this past time, which was there was a few factors in that. Yeah, that you guys had a pretty favorable disposal rate going into this last extension. In the costs have gone up for the disposal costs, and we're a transfer station. We've had raised costs in equipment operators, the people who haul our trash, because we take it to one location. It's a transfer station, so we dump it out there, and then it needs to go somewhere else to an in-site location, which those costs over the past 2 years, like many of our other costs, have gone up significantly. A lot of that was driven by labor. We use a lot of third-party haulers, tractor trailer haulers. We do some of it ourselves, but we're talking 20-30% increases we've seen from the tractor trailer companies over the past couple of years, and they're all implementing fuel surcharges now that they didn't historically do, and these are all costs that have impacted the tipping rates, and then you add on there's some uncertainty on some of the you bring up like the PERC incinerator in Warrington is struggling right now. So there's some unknown, like many states in New England, on disposal and where it's going to go. So I wish I could tell you a definite that, yeah, I don't know, it's only going to be a 3% increase in the next couple of years. I would not be comfortable saying that based off some of the things we're seeing in the state and the challenges with disposal.
Great. Joe, you have a question?
Yeah, it's a question that I know anyone who's watching will ask. With the automated system, you said obviously you need the special bins up front, and you said there's different options for paying for those. Does that one of those options include just falling on the person who's putting the bins out, or
so
what do those usually look like?
Yeah, so that would be a decision for the town to make. When I was talking about paying for the bins, there's an initial cost. These bins cost right today about $62 to $65 per bin, which includes delivery to the residents. So the companies that handle this will, the initial rollout, that $62, $65 gets you the purchase of the cart plus the delivery to the residents for the initial, and then there's the maintenance after that. So when I would say there's different ways to do that, there's way, Casella could purchase those bins and build that into the cost of the contract over the terms of the contract, and and then we manage anything that has to do with the carts. If one gets broken, we have residents call us. We brand them Casella. That's probably one of the biggest benefits we get out of it is that our branding is out there, and, you know, and then if you decide to purchase the carts, as the town, then, you do what you want with branding and labeling, and, but we typically will say, you know, that's on you for the management and storage, of the carts as well.
Follow-up question on that too, so is it like everyone has to commit to the exact same, trash container? It's not like you have a spec that just has to meet the spec and people can get that, it sounds like you have to do it all at once, especially if you're gonna brand it.
So it's we typically will go with one, brand. So
Yeah.
there's different
Okay, yeah.
cart companies out there. You have Toter, you have
Mhm.
Cascade, you have Varig, you have Sierra. There's a number of companies that do this, and they all, you know, the carts are a little bit different, but they all offer similar services.
Mhm.
So, you know, we can do that. And then there's different sizes. So what we tend to recommend is, the norm is someone gets a 64 gallon, which is just like the ones that are out here. That's a 64. So you get one of those for recycling, one of those for trash for a week. 99% of people, that's perfectly fine. We try to avoid like offering tons of different like sizes. There's some that are 32s, there's 96s that are bigger. We like saying stick with one size for everybody, but you know, we understand that, you know, there may be some elderly folks that, you know, that would be a difficult push to get to their, so we've done that with some where we said, you know, we give out a flyer, like you have to meet these parameters to qualify for a different size bin, but ultimately that's, you know, up to you guys and how you want to manage that program.
But it is an option, cause that was gonna be the next question, someone's gonna say, I don't need a bin that big, I can't push a bin that big.
Mhm.
There could be an option for certain individuals, if the town selected one bin, say like, you know, if that's too much for you to handle, you could go with something else.
The smaller bins are an option. The city of Westbrook did it. They did a lot of the 32s. I think if you were to talk to them, they would say don't do it. Because the problem is, we get this truck, and it's all pressure. That's how it picks up the bin. It reaches around it, it grabs it, and holds onto it as it's dumping in. That's set up for the 64 gallon bin to be able to grab it. So when you get the smaller bins, there is, you know, they do tend to fall in because there's not as much pressure around it because it's smaller, skinnier. And we don't deal with a ton of those issues in the winter. I mean, in the summer, it's in the winter when it gets cold and they get slick, and then the guy, you know, the driver dumps it and then it slips out, and you know, drivers are, you know, jumping up on the side of the truck and pulling them out. At one point, a couple of them fell off and got hurt, and then we don't do that anymore. So when the bin goes in the truck, it stays in the truck. So there are some issues with the smaller ones. Westbrook did a lot of them, so they deal with more issues than what, you know, a normal town that has them. But even that, I think they went last winter I think they would tell you was a struggle, and I bet there was like 10 or 12 of them that we lost in the truck all winter. But so it's not a huge issue, but it's just another headache to manage, or just another thing to pay attention to.
And I got one last question. You mentioned upkeep so is there a certain type of damage that, you know, you all say, we'll fix this or whatever? Like, I bought a bin in the very first time I used it. The guy, when he dropped it off the truck, broke the cover. You know, so I was like, all right, well, that's fine with me, I'll fix it. But I wasn't sure, people are probably wondering, if something gets broken on their side, when they're moving it out or whatever, are they responsible if you all have something break, or does that work?
So it would be on us. Again, it would go back to who purchases the bin. If the town purchases it, then it would be on, you know, your decision. How if we purchase it and manage the carts, then that would be on us. And it happens. Like the lids will break. There are warranties on these. So if you are you know, the car companies, you know, give you, I think, usually a 10-year warranty, right? And that's really the life cycle of the car is really about a 10-year. So, you know, there is warranties on the carts, but if it's driver abuse, even if, you know, say you purchase the carts and, you know, we got a driver out there who's banging the, you know, we're gonna take responsibility for that. If it's somebody moves out of town and decides to take their cart with them, you know, we need to replace that. And then if you know, again, if you're managing the program, you're responsible for that. If we manage it, then we'll replace that cart. So that's how that works.
Anybody, any other questions?
I have some questions. When you say long-term contract, you're interested in entertaining a long, what are your long-term contracts typically look like in terms of length of time?
So I would say a minimum of 5 years. And the challenge we have with the contract years is we're gonna buy a truck and potentially, you know, Benz, depending on where that would go, is in a 3-year contract. You know, these trucks that we purchase are now, you know, $550,000. They're over $500,000 now. It's hard to get the return on investment with 3 years, so we can, you know, the 5-year allows us to spread the cost of that truck out further. So that's why we say a minimum of 5, just so we can, you know, spread the cost of the purchase of the truck out.
So when you say that you're purchasing a truck, are you purchasing a truck specifically for Durham, or are you using that truck for other municipalities also?
So right now, and this is part of why we did the 1-year extension, is I'm trying to line up Durham with other municipalities that get service out of West Bath, where Mark operates right now. We have no automated trucks out of there, so I didn't want to have to purchase, you know, not only if I was doing it, I have to buy a spare truck too, so really I have to buy 2 for the town of Durham. So we will buy it with, you know, the idea of it going to Durham, but we build in like how much are we actually using that on the town. So it's 3 days a week, so 3/5 of the truck.
Okay. And then, do you have any municipalities that do trash pickup twice a month instead of every week?
We do not. We have some municipalities that do recycling, not every week, but we don't currently service anybody who does any of them that are less than weekly.
For trash.
Bi-weekly recycle, so.
We have some Auburn, you know, that just covered theirs. They were the 1st and 3rd weeks of the, you went twice a month. So it got messed up that if it was the 5th week, then there was no recycling. If you know those weeks that there's a 5th Tuesday, then we didn't send out a recycling truck, and it really confused people. But no, we don't currently do any bi-weekly trash.
Okay. I'd be interested to see when we're at the point where we're looking at numbers, because obviously, like, you're gonna have more weight, right, if you're waiting 2 weeks for the trash to get picked up. And I would be interested to see what the cost difference would be, if it was bi-weekly collection. Because I understand the weight is gonna increase if it's every 2, right, but it saves the trip out twice a week, what the cost difference would be if it was on a bi-weekly basis instead of a weekly.
Yeah, so the biggest savings, which you know, and we can build out any model that you want to see, but the biggest savings on that would be the labor.
And you're going to automate it, so that's not really, other than the driver.
Yeah, so you're getting a big savings on the labor being off the truck anyways. So you have the driver, so it's really, you know, you would run into issues with the bins. At that point, I would say don't do 64-gallon bins. You'd have to do at least 96, the bigger ones, if you're holding trash for 2 weeks. And that may not even be enough. You might have to go with 2 bins. And as I'm sitting here talking, you're probably gonna,
If it's not a
this
feasible
savings
thing that makes
will
sense,
probably
then
get
it's,
away with that.
yeah. Okay.
Talk about driver coming in, like I did, too. But.
Yeah, and the cost of the truck is still the cost of the truck, and, yeah.
So, how many so what you're saying 12 to 18 months for a truck? And going forward, you're not gonna renew contracts unless they're automated contracts? Or you're not gonna take new contracts unless they're under the automated service? I just wanna make sure I understand that correctly. So if we choose to not go automated, that means that our contract with you would be done?
Yeah, we would not, bid on a rear load collection. It's-
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have just a trivial question in regards to, if, let's just hypothetically, we have a 64-gallon bin. If the rare occasion, the individual throws a big party and has a bunch of extra trash that week, how do you get rid of that?
Yeah, so that's the challenge with it, like right now, like, we don't offer any like overflow, you know, we would, you know, we could tell them they could go to the West Bath transfer station and drop it off, but, I realize
We
that.
tried that, that's how we got you guys.
Yeah. So, that is a challenge, you know, I don't really probably have a solution for you right this second on that.
Well, that's
It's not,
fine. I was just
we
curious.
deal with it, you know, we have a lot of municipalities that do this right now, and it doesn't seem to be too big of an issue. You know, some of them have their own transfer stations, so that helps, but, yeah, what we don't have is, you know, what we have, you know, we make pretty clear is like, the trash has gotta go into the bin, because that defeats the whole purpose of the automated collection if the driver has to get out. And really, with this style of collection, you're literally like you'd have to throw the bags up over the top of because the car comes in and dumps something over. Yeah, no, it's a challenge with that, but we do it every day, and we don't get a lot of that,
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same, I generate a lot of recycling.
Yeah.
All my grain bags for my livestock are, so like, there's times where I see the guys roll their eyes when they come to my house, cause there's 4 bins out there with recycling, more often than not, so I was gonna ask something similar, but.
Well, I guess if somebody
it's
could
gonna figure
afford
it out.
the opportunity to buy another bin at their home if they wanted to, correct?
Yeah, that's stuff we can, you know, we would talk through, you know, if that, you know, that's, you know, our avenue you'd wanna go down. We try not to make it too complex, but, we find that, you know, I know the city of Bangor did this recently, and they wanted to offer, multiple bins, to people who wanted them, and came up with a program for that, and, you know, what they found was it was very, you know, once people started doing it, they're pretty big bins, they can fit in quite a bit, and if they're generating more than, you know, sometimes it's someone's running a business out of their house, and that's really not municipal trash to begin with, or, you know, so, but they didn't find many that wanted, I think, you know, Bangor's, you know, pretty decent sized city, and I wanna say they had like 25 people who wanted an extra bill.
Do you find that the majority of municipalities that have gone this route, that they are purchasing the bins, or are they having you manage the bins?
It goes both ways. The larger municipalities we've dealt with, tend to want to manage that or purchase them themselves. The smaller ones tend to want us to do it because they don't wanna have to deal with, managing the carts and don't have the resources for that. You know, right now, it depends, it goes back and forth. We prefer us purchasing the bins, you know, we know what we're doing with those, and, you know, it's not a headache you have to deal with, although there's a cost to us managing them.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask you,
Yeah.
is what the cost of the bin itself is the same, but the cost of you managing the bins, that gets built into
That
the
gets built
contract?
into it, yeah.
And, okay, so my other thing was gonna say that if we had you manage the bins, is the fact that your branding is out there, is that like a trade for you managing the contract? But it's not. We're gonna barter that situation a little bit.
Yeah. Are you saying you purchase the bins, we put them as Casella, and and manage them for you?
No, I was saying, I don't know what I was saying. When you were talking before about that you guys put your branding on them, if you manage the contracts and that puts your branding out there, if that would be an incentive for us to go with you managing the contracts, because now your branding is out there, but we don't have to deal with managing the contracts.
Yeah,
Is what I'm
we
saying.
do.
Managing the bins.
Managing
like,
the
yeah,
bins.
yeah.
Yeah, we do look at that as a value and build that in, that, you know, there's a value to having Casella like up and down the street. I mean, if someone needs a roll-off container, you know, we hope that they're gonna choose us because our service is so good and they want to you know, go with us. So it's a benefit to us that we do build in that, you know, it's a free advertising. So we do build that into when we're looking at and lessen what we're looking to try to recoup from the bins.
My only other question, I think, is that if someone new moves to town and we've already, you know, sealed the deal, how does that work for new residents? We have a lot of like new housing coming. I mean, sure, everybody does, right?
So
How do
you
deal
mean
with that?
someone builds a new house, then they would just need to call in and say where they live, and as long as it's a road that we're going down already, then, you know, we give them a bin. You know, if it's a new development, like a new road, then we'd have to look at that on whether, you know, is it a private road, is it a public road, are they willing to sign a waiver for us to go down it, is it, you know, do you want it part of the collection, and, so, for like developments it's a little different, but if someone builds a house on a road we're already collecting, we just deliver them then.
Can I add to your question a
Yeah,
little bit? I think
sure.
one of the things she was talking about was the, what if someone moves out, the toters stay at the house? You know, obviously we see like City of Lewiston recycling bins in West Bath, and, you know, we see all that everywhere, but.
Yes, the bin is is associated with the house, not the resident. They do these, they scan them, so the serial number on that bin is registered to that address, so that it's the address. Now, if someone moves to, you know, New Hampshire and takes a bin with them, we're probably not tracking it down, we're going to chip in it to go find them, and then, you know, that's really a cost of doing business, that we would have to replace it.
I came up with one more question. So right now, if we allot 26 trash tags per home, anything they use over and above that, they have to come in and purchase. And I don't know the number right off the top of my head of revenue that we generate from trash tags. I'm not expecting you to know that number either. But is there a system that municipalities use that allows them to generate revenue off collection? Like the way that we generate revenue off of anybody using more than their 26 tags?
The short answer to that is it's very, very difficult, and nobody has really come up with a good solution to, you know, your pay-as-you-throw programs,
Right.
but you do the tags. So those tend to get eliminated in this process, which is obviously, you know, a revenue loss. So I understand that's a challenge when we talk to every municipality that has some type of pay-as-you-throw, that there's a revenue stream there that goes away. The only one that is currently trying to still maintain a pay-as-you-throw program and do automated is Kennebunk, which they have had a horrible, you know, it's just, there's no way to check it. Like, the whole purpose of the automated collection is you just go, you dump it, you go to the next one. So it's so hard to police on the street without just sending people out to get out ahead of the truck and tag them. They do that every once in a while, but it's a really, really hard one to do. South Portland's currently exploring, you know, some way to do a pay-as-you-throw program, not with bags or tags. They're trying to get, you know, creative with, is there something you can put on a bin? When we dump it, it falls off, and you don't dump it unless it's on the bin. They're doing, but they're trying to incorporate, supplement a food waste collection and pay with it with a pay-as-you-throw program. But so there's, but we haven't found anyone who's been really successful with maintaining one of those programs. So once they go automated.
So just a follow-up question to that. Have any municipalities come back and said that because there's no longer a cost associated with that, right? That they've seen weight go up because now people don't have to pay to get more tags to throw more trash away. Now it's just, I can throw away anything I want, the weight goes up, and then does our bill go up if that happens? I assume it does.
If the weight of the trash would go up, then yes, your weight, no, we really haven't seen that, from what I've seen, in talk to municipalities. What you sometimes get is, more contamination in your recycling, because if your bin gets full, you're not really using your recycle bin, you throw your trash in the recycle bin, and again, you know, the arm, there's no police, and we're not flipping the lid before we dump it, so when we dump that recycle bin, what's in that bin is going in the recycling, so. Some of that, but, you know, we do tagging programs and stuff to identify contamination and recycling, and we can do education and all that, but we haven't seen a drastic increase in trash, because the bins are also limited, so that person who was putting out, you know, 5 yards of trash every week, cause they're running, you know, a business in, you know, their garage, now they're limited to a 64-gallon bin, which limits how much they can put out each week, which I know that, you know, part of your question, will that be a problem, but also, you know, limits people to how much trash they can throw out, which limits how much the weight would be as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that really quick too, a suggestion we've been giving municipalities about getting rid of their pay-as-you-throw and trying to still generate that revenue is instituting like a cart fee, like a yearly cart fee. So take the average of what you make in a year off of the pay-as-you-throw tax, divided by how many households are in town, and then say it's the average person's spending $100 or so every year on those tags. It's still the cart fee, they have to come into town hall, pay the cart fee, kind of helps with the, offset the cost.
Right?
The only thing I would mention is like if you're, you know, going forward, like whatever you decide to do, if it's like, if you wanna do an RFP with it, you know, for a contract, I think our recommendation at this point would be to try to do that before, the end of this calendar year, you know, giving us 6 months, you know, the thing, you know, if we can do automated earlier, so if we were to know that we were, you know, if we signed a contract with you that we're gonna do a 5-year automated collection, the sooner we were to do that, the quicker we can order the truck and we can build that into our model, that the less real load work we have to do, the less the price would be.
So I think the biggest thing with that is we do have to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
With this, so that's April. So that would be when the decision came out for, you know, so the proposal would come in and then we would have to present, the selection at town meeting for approval, so you wouldn't really have a decision until that time frame.
Yeah, so.
And then it would kick it off and implement your timeline that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so if it was April, I mean, realistically, then we're probably not looking at automating until,
Later that year.
So I would say
Yeah.
fall of 2025 at the
Yeah.
earliest.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Which, you know, you'd have to pay for that rear load service until
Yep,
that
we'd
time.
have to- we'd
I think
have to
you'll
extend
see,
from there.
some savings with the automated collection once we're able to institute that, but, yeah, I would plan on probably at least 18 months.
Yep.
This might be a question for Jess or Jerry. Do you know how many residences we have?
Roughly 1,600.
Yeah. 1640, something like that, 1641.
So at 100, the 62 whatever per bin or 64, I don't remember exactly what he said, times that is $200,000 for just the carts, not counting. if
You
we-
count that twice a
Close
week.
with the recycling.
Yeah, so it's.
Two.
I did 125
There you
times
go.
1,600.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So does that get paid in one, or does that get like, let's say we did a 5-year contract, does that cost get spread out over the 5 years, or is that an upfront fee? You
If-
might have answered that already, sorry.
If we purchase the carts, we will build that cost out, from the time we purchase the carts. So we will build that fee in, so, like, we're not going to purchase the carts until the truck's here, so we would build out the fee once those carts come in, and then charge that for the length of the contract.
Okay.
It would be a monthly, it would be added to the monthly bill.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Kelly, Mark, and Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your
Appreciate it.
presentation, appreciate it.
No
Thanks,
problem.
guys.
Appreciate having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we've got some Board of Assessors work to do here. We've got, these are payments,
Right, so,
Can we go into the Board of Assessors for that, so they can make motion to go into,
so we'll get, so it'll come on your next invoice.
Durham Board of Assessors.
I'm just
Uh,
gonna
Joe.
carry it every week.
I did talk to Calvin, the only thing you guys got.
When it gets to town meeting, I'll complain about the
tires, which you weren't.
customer service from back there.
But the problem was.
Okay, I got a second.
The customer
I'm
was like,
going into the Board of Assessors.
"Oh, it'll just-
All in
I'll
favor?
just now on if there's anything you want
Okay,
to do.
that motion moves.
Call me first.
Okay.
Sometimes
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so you have three of them, two belong to one
Yep.
person, the other another, and the reason
Thank
was
you.
here, these were the
Yeah, good to
abatements
see you.
is just error on Don's part that she was doing.
Yep, no, I saw that on the write-up. It's pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions about any of the adjustments here for the abatements? Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion here, make sure I get all three of them. Let me see here. All right, so I move that we accept the assessor's abatement notifications here for James and Monica Milheim, and 2 abatements for Jeffrey Packett. And, let's see, James and Monica at map 6, lot 89A. Jeff Packett at, he's got map 12, lot 26A, and map 7, let's see, map 12, lot 26A, both of those are the same location, 2 separate towns. Do I have a second on that? Josh seconds, all in favor? Okay. Motion passes. The abatements,
The officials are here for
sign the official ones as they come around. Sorry. Thank you.
My pen is turquoise, that's probably not, is not pink, or you can just grab another.
I signed payroll and paid in purple a month ago, I think I was still paid, so.
Sign the lot of assessors. No more assessment issues, Jerry, we're all set there?
You good
Okay.
on those three, yep?
All right, I'll make a motion to move out of assessing and back into the regular meeting. Joe seconds, and all in favor, in the usual manner. Okay, we're back to our regular select board agenda. Let's see, we have items, although we moved our goals and priority down to the end here, so we may have some items that come up for our next Any other agenda items for next select board meeting that anybody is aware of that we need to talk about here?
You want?
Is this I know that at our next select board meeting, I have a conflict where I either need to miss the meeting or I need to be late, and I'm not sure what the appropriate way to be excused from a meeting is if I know that I can't attend.
Whichever way you want, you can come in later, or you just don't show up.
Or just, yeah, just,
Okay, I just wanted everyone to know that they
I
can.
also won't be at the meeting next week. I have sister hospital.
yeah, just, that's fine.
Okay, and so is that the way that we just say that in this
You
meeting?
can either say it or you
email
can send an
Jerry?
email or
Yeah.
text, there's just so many knows that it's an excused absence, that's all it really.
Just really need to know the day before the meeting takes place that we're
Yeah.
gonna have a full, at least 3 people here,
Right.
enough business, just to cancel the meeting, but you don't have to necessarily give reason or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
You can just, I'll be at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You said you're not gonna be here? You said, I didn't hear what you said.
No, I was just, I think it was Joe that said.
Yeah, I won't be here.
Okay. All right, let's see, consent agenda, I will make the motion that we accept the consent agenda as provided.
Second?
Heather will second, all in favor?
Should say the July 13th meeting, not the June.
Is that what it says?
June 13th?
Yeah, it should say July.
Sorry, I didn't.
All right,
With that,
does it say July on the consent
Yeah.
agenda or just on the,
It says it on the agenda, but
oh, but not on the, okay.
Oh, my
Not on
my
the-
agenda says June.
right.
Yeah, but not on the
That's fine.
document, but
That's
not on the
document.
document.
Just
Okay.
says on
All right, it's just
Was it
on the
June?
agenda.
June 11th, not 13th. I mean, July 11th.
the, right.
Yeah. Just carry over.
And then are the warrants that we're signing from,
July, that's why I just asked if the document said July.
okay,
Yeah. Okay. All right, so got a motion on the table, all in favor? Okay, that's a unanimous vote, motion carries. Upcoming meetings here, we got select board meeting, next select board meeting on 8/8 and 8/22 for next month, and planning board meeting coming up on 8/2. All those are at the Durham Town Office. All right, and now we will be, discussing goals and priority setting. Jerry has provided a couple documents here.
Well, I provided one for you that,
Yep.
the ex-chair Kevin shared with our town meeting, we put up on the board what some of our
Yep.
works to do. And then Heather has submitted a couple too that she wants to,
Yep.
talk about,
So-
so.
So I just wanted to tick down the list of, challenges and opportunities, and future challenges and opportunities that was displayed at the town meeting back in April. Is the first thing, because we have a number of these that are, I'll say, in process, or, we've been talking about. I'm gonna skip around on this list a little bit, but, we just heard from, Casella and solid waste, so solid waste is coming up, it's something that's on the radar for the, as everybody heard, it's listening out there, we have it going on, that's gonna come up here in the next, at least the next voting, town meeting, for getting a contract in place for a long-term solid waste contract, whoever it is, whether it's Casella or somebody else. So that's a huge item on the list that we have to deal with on how to manage that. I suspect that will also be the same across all their competitors, regardless of who comes in. So I don't see that waste is gonna get much cheaper in the future for anybody. We just gotta figure out the best way to do it. That's definitely an item on the list. Property revaluation, we already have that in process, capital improvement. Monies were already expended on that this year, and we have another round, I believe, next town meeting to go get that process moving. So that's coming up, and that will also be, I'll say a big deal. The result of it will be a big deal, because we are behind on evaluation, reevaluation process. So that's gonna be something that's going to be sticking in everyone's minds. We have the outstanding ARPA funds, which I know we've been expending on ARPA this year for different projects that were approved at town meeting. I'm not gonna list all the projects here, but there was a number of projects that are ongoing that are utilizing those ARPA funds. I know Jerry's gonna put together a plan for us as to what's left over once we get through the projects that are on the list that we've already approved at town meeting. Long-term plan for the Old Town Hall, that's moving at this point. So that is, we've got a committee in place, and they're starting to meet. And we've put a deadline of, I believe it's about 4 months for them to come up with a long-term plan to present back to the select board. So that's moving forward. Technology upgrades at the Eureka Center, we've discussed that a number of times last spring. That's definitely I'll say goes hand in hand with town office reconfiguration. That only because you need to almost upgrade the Eureka Center and get that completely usable in order for us to then think about reconfiguring the town hall. So both of those go hand in hand, and so the Eureka Center does need some attention, probably more than just technology upgrades in order to use that on a regular basis moving forward. And then I'll go back to our calendar, the fiscal year budget. As you indicated, Jerry, the Royer and Associates has our data all entered into their system. That's going to allow us to now have a better view forward and be able to plan for moving to a potential calendar to fiscal year budget. That is also a long-term, it won't be immediate next year, but something that we need to start planning for. So those are the list of projects that I'll say are ongoing right now, that we have staff and folks working on a regular basis, along with volunteers from the community. So that's those are the items that were put up during town meeting, and a lot of those are real and active projects that everybody's going after right now. So that's the download on what that slide means to the town at this point.
Okay. I'm gonna talk to Donna, but I think what we should do is really put that RFP out for reevaluation, because they're probably 2 years out from even attempting to do it. That's when I get emails from the Maine Town City Managers Association, and other towns are going through that process, it's taking some time. There's just not that many people out there to do it, so we don't have to commit to it. But I think to get somebody in the pipeline and queue it up, I think it would be advantageous to get that out sooner than later. That way we'll actually have a cost, and as we tuck money away, and when they know they can be on board, we're probably 2 town meetings away from it being done. So it would give us time to more dialed in numbers of what that's gonna cost. Right now, we only have 60,000 in the bank.
Right.
For that.
Is it a third party that does, it's not Donna that does that?
No,
Okay.
it's a third party. And it's a lengthy process, because they go house to house.
So when you talk to Donna about that, could you also ask her what the cost of taxpayers is for not doing that? Maybe if we don't.
Well, yes, I could, but we're at a 67% value now, so the cost.
The state forces you, if you fall below, I think 70, the state forces you to do it.
Right.
So we're at 67 now, so 1 year later, we could be below the threshold.
And so I guess where I'm going with my question, and I'll just ask it, what the benefit of waiting 2 years, other than other than paying taxes, is it a benefit for us to push it out, or is it going to be more advantageous for us to say, pay it up front now and you'll see savings later on? Does that make sense?
I'm not totally clear.
I think he's saying that if we like put it out there as a warrant question, instead of putting money away a little bit at a time over the next couple of years, am I understanding you correctly? To pay for it all at once and get it done right away.
Well, we would like to get it done right away, but it's getting the company in here to do it right away. That's what we're
Right.
interested.
Right, there's two things, right? There's the cost of it, and then there's the scheduling of the company. So, yes, we could get, no, I agree with you, get
I'll
it.
just, I mean, that doesn't answer my question, I'll ask her, and
Okay.
I don't understand the question.
I think the question is, correct me if I'm wrong, is what's the benefit from a cost standpoint of getting it done, whether it's next week or next year,
It's-
or pushing it out?
I mean, when you said we're 2 town meetings away, that means we're 2 town meetings away and then another 2 years if that's what their wait list is. As opposed to getting it done at the next town meeting, coming up with all the money and getting it on, so it's 3 years instead of 4 years.
No, if we put the RFP out now, we could have it done in 2 years, but we're 2 town meetings away from that 2 years.
Are you saying funding wise, we're 2 town meetings away?
No,
or
just
the
getting
wait list?
Wait list is what I'm saying.
I misunderstood, okay.
Yeah. So we're not gonna get it done. There's about a 2-year wait list to have the whole revaluation.
I think it's advantageous to send the RFP out.
Yeah, yeah, I think so
Just to
too.
get the number.
And then we can get the number, and then we know how much, and then we know how much we need to ask for.
Exactly.
And then if we do it now, we can probably get it done in 2 years.
Okay.
So I'll work with Donna on that, get that out.
Yeah, there is no, I can't remember the reason you gave me wrong on this, there is no option per se of doing, like we planned on a couple years ago, a partial to get it somewhat up to par.
I think we're past
We're
that
past
point.
that
We talked to Donna, we're kind of past that point. She was gonna do a little bit of an adjustment, and she, at this point, when we're so low, she's a little uncomfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's called a market where they don't go into the homes.
They don't go in.
Right,
And
it was just
that's like a mini one, and then the ones in the house. is
We
like
missed the
a-
opportunity for that. Is what she told us, so, yeah.
So get that, I'll just get that going and,
Okay. So, Heather, you handed out a bunch of examples, I believe, of, North Yarmouth
So I'll just,
communications and,
yeah, so I'll just talk about this document first, and then I think maybe if we establish like how we're gonna kind of go through, like, are we all gonna like say our top 3 things that we think we should focus on? Are we gonna make a list of stuff and then vote on it, or how did you see this
Well,
going?
I see this going as we've got a list, so we can add to that list, and then we can prioritize from there. So
Okay.
I was gonna take this list and put it in an Excel format, similar to what North Yarmouth has here, right? They got a similar format here of just an Excel sheet and a list and put a priority. So it's almost no different than, I'll say, CIP. Some of the stuff will fall into CIP depending on what it is. I mean, this is almost like your capital improvement list. It's gonna go to CIP in the fall.
Point of clarification here, you said we have a list, but this isn't ours, it's.
No, this is somebody else's list. They
Right.
like this list, an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, because
like
you
this.
just said we have a list and we're gonna add to it.
Well, we have a list right here, from the town meeting. These are all in-process projects that we need to put on a list, and I've got like 5 number 1s on here that are ongoing right now that need to get done. It's not like we can wait. We can't wait for the technology upgrades. We need to move forward with the town office reconfiguration. We should get onto a fiscal budget year. Solid waste is coming up in front of us, property reevaluation we just talked about, and then we need a long-term capital improvement funding plan, which the capital improvement committee needs to start, at least look at that, but also Jerry and his department heads have to come up with a plan for the 3 departments essentially that we fund. And then we're gonna have a proposals from the Old Town Hall Committee that also is on my list. So this is a very valid list of, 2, 4, 6, 8 items that are live and real that they all have a very high priority from the town. Yes, sir.
I agree that most of the stuff on here is a high priority. I just don't understand the plan of attack for say. For example, just in regards to this, the long-term plan for solid waste, we met with one vendor tonight, obviously, that's a maximum of 5 year. When this was discussed previously, it's more of, okay, for example, let's just say this particular option in front of us isn't possible. What are our options
Oh, I
going
agree.
forward? So how are we setting that up as far as, even with regards to this list, before anything else is further, in terms of discussion on how we're attacking this particular list? For example, how do we get to a fiscal year? You know, it's great that it's on the list, but if we're not attacking the list and breaking it out and trying to determine how we achieve these things, then it's just on the list.
What I envision is throwing more work on Jerry's plate, is us coming up with the goals, and him coming up with this type of sheet.
Yep.
And then coming back to us and saying, this is who's gonna do it, who's gonna, that's
I'm
the
good
line
with
of
that,
it.
I'm good with that too.
So if I could speak to that sheet now, part of the reason why I brought this was because, it goes back to what Christina said when she was here to facilitate our workshop, that when she was on the town council, the members of the town council took lead on various goals that the board wanted to accomplish. And I just, to me, when I look at this, this looks exactly like a comp plan format, right? So I'm assuming that these goals are derived from the town that I pulled this from, comp plan, and then they have their strategy, they have their action step, they have the board, or they have the town entity that is assigned to whatever that action step is, and then the board member that's the lead on whatever that step is.
Yep.
And so I really like this. I think that this puts, you know, accountability into individual pockets to be able to come back and we have a lot of work to do. And I feel like taking this kind of step and direction as a way to attack all of these things that need to get done makes a lot of sense.
No,
Do you approach it as from a time management perspective in terms of what are we trying to achieve for this fiscal year? What's the highest priority for us to achieve to get to town meeting next year?
Right.
Yeah, I just also want to have a less of a reactive standpoint where I appreciate that and that is the priority and that's what's up, that's teed up next. But at the same time, if we're always only dealing with one step at a time headed into decisions for the next town meeting, it's part of the reason why there's 20 years worth of work that needs to get done, is because it's always being dealt with for the next year, and there's not a longer term, goal that exists, and then implementation steps to arrive at that goal. Like if you look at our comp plan, and there's the short term for the action step, the midterm, so short term was within 2 years, that's 2020. The midterm, those action steps were supposed to be completed by 2023. Long term didn't have a set date or ongoing, right? And so I went through the entire comp plan before I came to the meeting tonight, and out of all of those things that are listed in there, I was able to check about 10 off as complete. And so I think
How many items were in there?
it's 31 pages long. And so all of those things that are,
She said 10 pages, she said 10 items.
yeah, 31 pages that look like this, and I was able to check 10 off as complete. And so I would just love for us to look at what the comp plan is, look at what, there are complete sections that have been just not even addressed, and were supposed to have been completed by 2020, literally not taken on. Very easy things like form an agricultural advisory board. That is not a difficult thing to do, but was supposed to be completed by 2020, hasn't happened. I think it's a priority. That's not a difficult task to complete. Let's put it on the list.
Put it on the list, I mean, I think you're gonna, with any committee, you're gonna have trouble getting people, but it'll be the same people. So how many, we can try that. We can try that. but, I mean, I don't,
Oh, I think we have a responsibility to do it. It's what the voters voted for in the comp plan. That is supposed to be our working document of
Yeah, I
what we're
mean,
attempting
if
to
it's
accomplish.
difficult, we haven't even tried it, so.
it's a template to go and follow, no, I don't disagree. I mean,
No, I don't disagree with that either, Heather. What I'm saying is from an operational standpoint, operational stuff is fluid. For example, the trash, I don't think anybody, even 5, 6, 7 years ago, ever really thought that we would get to the point that we're at now with trash, where we're actually have had discussions on whether or not we're even gonna have trash pickup
Right.
in this town. You know, so sometimes those things, unfortunately cause things like an agricultural committee to be put on a back burner.
Yeah, so, I don't think that look how quickly our Union Church Committee came together, right? There are a lot of farmers, Replanova, Old Crow, these are all people who have a vested interest in this part of our roots
Yeah.
that I believe would come to the table very quickly and very easily.
I can't recall, again, I've been here forever, but long enough. I can't recall ever a time establishing a committee where we didn't get enough volunteers to do that. It's just usually, you just gotta get it out. It's like you just said. If you wanna establish a committee, let's establish an agricultural committee, or whatever committees you want there. I mean, I wouldn't put too many out at maybe 1 or 2 at one point in time, but I mean, that's another, we can add that to an agenda in the forthcoming weeks. That's something to do.
Yeah, I think this just helps elucidate your point more so, is that if there's not a lead attached to it, there's no one picking up the mantle to just say, hey, let's put it on there, you know? And if there's, it's just diversification of the work there, and it gets done. And some of these things might be higher priority, but others might be super low of the list, if it's just a matter of saying, you know, we know the comp plan calls for an ag committee, we've heard interest, I've seen people asking about it in town, we've heard interest, if you're interested, please come.
That was just an
But
example
that's-
too, I don't
yeah,
want us to
but
get
I-
stuck on
I
an
understand.
agricultural committee, that was just an
But that-
example.
But any committee for that matter.
Mhm. And I also, with my thing that I brought here to show this is 100% intended not to put more work on the town manager's plate in an effort to accomplish goals that need to be accomplished. I do think that we also have a responsibility to support him in his role, and that includes us taking some responsibility for some of the things that need to be accomplished. So I would just like to put out there as a thing for people to consider. We have a substantial lack of policies that exist, right? Written down policy for X, Y, and Z. And I would love to be the lead person to take on policies for Jerry to review and then make his edits as he sees fit to come before the board if people are interested in that type of situation and having multiple examples. You know, that's the kind of work that I'm looking at trying to get done.
I think it's great that you have that enthusiasm, and I'm all for it. I mean, policy is done by us, it's not really anything to do with Jerry. I mean, we're the policymakers. It's just what policies, how many, and how many can we attack as a group, not as an individual.
Right. I'm not interested in doing any of it as an individual. What I'm interested in is collecting the information for us to be able to make decisions as a group for it. Like if you, I highly doubt that anybody else watched the Union Church Committee thing, right? But one of the members showed up with an example of bylaws to follow. And the chair of the committee went through the bylaws, suggested 2 edits, and then the rest of the committee voted on what wonderful foresight for that committee member to show up to their first meeting with that, and there's not any of this floundering, there's not any of this, what are we supposed to do in this situation? Here's their document that guides what their committee rules are. It's those types of things that I would love to take that on.
So, what you're describing here would be like if there's a division of labor here, there's a task of crafting our policy or rules or whatever, one of us board members, whoever's signed up to do that, would take the first stab at it and then obviously bring something to the board and say, here's what I've got started. I mean, it kind of just sounds like, I see what you're saying, is that we have all these things we want to do, but unless someone's saying, you're the person to get the ball rolling, we're just kind of waiting.
Right.
And no
For
one's
him
pushing
to
on
put
it.
something in front of us,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
like,
I see what you're saying.
So, In my eyes, what you're talking about with the policies is something that you should ask to put on the next agenda. And you can come in with proposed policies, we can review them and discuss them at a meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
That's how I would,
Right.
the appropriate way, I
So
see
is
do
it,
that.
would you suggest the same thing for the fee schedule? Because I would also love to be the point person on the fee schedule.
I think anything like that, yeah.
Yeah, if you wanna address a fee schedule, address it.
I
If you wanna
thought-
address a specific policy, add it to the agenda and have it addressed.
I thought we were waiting for someone to get back to us on the fees, but.
Waiting for more of a legal determination from legal counsel,
Right.
Right.
yeah, on what you can set and what you can't.
I think it's more about timing, right, of when a fee schedule can be set or changed.
Well, the ordinance says annually. That's
Right.
what we have to
But it's
follow.
not whether or not a fee schedule can be set or changed, it's just about timing of when it can change.
Specifically because we just changed some of the fees.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I specifically asked in that meeting, is this going to prevent us from adding additional fees or changing fees because we're doing this right now? And the answer was no, and you guys have sought legal opinion of that, and that's completely fine, I appreciate that, because we don't obviously wanna be doing things in a legal way. But I don't think the previous question was, if a fee doesn't currently exist, can we add a fee for something that doesn't currently have a fee? And the legal opinion that came back was, yes, we can.
If it's in the land use ordinance, yes. If it's not in the ordinance, we can't.
You can't enforce
You
something
can't,
that's not there.
you can't.
You
So,
can,
like,
but
we
you
have
have
a-
to go to the town. You have to
Right.
make that policy.
You have to
part of
make
the
the
town.
policy change and go, and then you can put a fee against it, right?
So because we don't have a solar, anything in the thing that says something about solar, we can't charge a solar fee? This isn't the way that I understood this
Well,
decision.
you can charge under the conditional use permit, but there's no parameters on,
What your fee's for.
right, how setbacks, glare, there's no ordinance regulating.
What are you charging? You need them to be able to bring you something to charge something. You're giving a permit for what, right? Well, the fee is for something. Well, what do you want them to bring, right? Solar, you wanna bring a solar panel in here and show you one and charge you a fee? You gotta have
Your
that.
tone is a little condescending and I don't
No,
appreciate
sorry,
it.
I didn't
Thank
mean
you.
for it to come across that way. But just, you gotta set that policy, and then we charge a fee to it. And the policy needs to be voted in by the voters. If it's not something that we can do here.
Well, I think you can set a fee without the policy,
Under the conditional use
under the
permit.
conditional use, and you can dispute them. So,
Okay, what are our goals? What are we doing? Let's identify some goals. And come up with a plan. Or I think we need to get a facilitator to do this, because this is not going at all how I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah, I had a question with that, like, I mean, in terms of having something like this facilitated, because even in this example right here, we start off talking about goals and then we dive into details about the fee.
Right.
And I think that sometimes we meander when we talk about a subject because we see the work there. So I don't know if the best thing to do for a goal setting or something like that is have something facilitated so we can stay on track, because it's easy to get lost, because like I have ideas of goals and objectives, but I want it to be a fruitful discussion and meeting and get some insight, so, I mean, is that something that GP cog can facilitate?
Well, what are the goals? I mean, we've got a set of goals that I think I've been part of. I don't, we've got some long-term goals here. What other goals?
I'm deriving all of the things that I would like to bring to the table from the comp plan, and all of the things that were supposed to be completed by 2020 that have not even hit the radar. I just think we have a lot of work to do,
Mhm.
and there needs to be a systematic approach to it.
I mean, what I would suggest then, if there's 31 pages in the comp plan, and there's only 10 things that have been done, I don't know how many pages that covers, is that we set aside some night where we go through and start making those
Go through the
plans.
comp plan, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I like that
That's a
idea.
goal.
is, and that would, I mean, I like the idea of doing something like that and then having something like this, that we can then show, like, this is who's gonna work on this, who's gonna work on that. I mean, I think in some ways it helps add capacity to town employees who have a lot of other stuff going on as well.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting nervous.
Well, and that's where I'm coming to the table saying, I don't wanna put more work on you or on the staff.
Right.
But we can't just keep not getting stuff done that needs to get done.
Right.
I understand that you guys are completely at your max. I completely empathize with that. I am a very capable person, and I am more than happy to sit on this board and do research, do, you know, compiling of data, do the things that need to happen for us to be able to make strong policy decisions. I'm absolutely not asking for town staff to do that. I feel like this is the reason that I ran for this board.
Heather, what is your opinion on a timeline for this? Like, for example, if we have these items here, and I'm not saying these are our goals, by the way, this was produced last year. I don't know what this board's goals are, I thought that's what we're trying to achieve tonight. But how many goals is it realistic that we're planning on taking on this year as our goals? Or are you trying to develop a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan for the select board in regards to every policy and everything that exists in the town?
No, I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to do is take the voter-approved comp plan that took place in 2018, right? And I did this before I came here, and I love Josh's suggestion that we all sit here and we go through this together, right? And identify the things that have been completed, identify the things that still need to be done, and make a plan based on that of exactly what you said. If we're looking at moving to a fiscal year, what is the action plan to get there,
The project plan.
right? That's what I wanna do. I wanna have a plan. And then, these things are, I mean, they are laid out in the comp plan as a roadmap, right? But if our seats are all up at various times. If the same thing happens on the school board. The school board doesn't put up a new plan every single year that the department heads are coming and saying, in my 10-year project, at my 5-year mark, because this is the plan that was established through this type of thing, right?
I get it.
This is where I am. That's the kind of, but there's nothing in writing anywhere that says that, so let me make a policy, or find a policy, or, whatever, and we all read it, we all agree to it, so that there's more continuity as the boards change, right? We're all here for the town of Durham and what the town of Durham's goals are, and so as people on the board change, that doesn't all have to just go by the wayside because board members changed. We have a roadmap, we need to follow it. And there needs to be a strategic action plan to arrive at these things that the voters have approved.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, because in my mind, it's like 2018 comp plan gets approved. If it's 2023, if we're coming up on, 5 years since it's approved, and then voters are saying, what did you get done on the comp plans? If we have some deliverables, the land use ordinance that was recommended and stuff like that, but then there's other things that we just haven't done, and I feel like we wanna accomplish things
Right.
for the town, let folks know we're here advocating for them, and right now, it doesn't seem like we even have a list of like, these are the handful of things we're gonna take action on this year. Now, some of the stuff just gets dropped on us, obviously, housing,
Emergent
things
stuff,
get
right.
dropped on us, they've changed, like, us being told, no, you're not gonna be able to get a long-term trash contact track like you have, so obviously those things come into play, but like, I just think of every other organization, we kinda have like that checklist of like, here's what we're hoping to get done this year, here's what we're hoping to get done next year, here's what we're hoping to get done the year after. And sometimes I think we have people like Heather's volunteering, take a stab at something and bring it back to us. I think coordinating those sorts of efforts would be helpful. And then just that also, like, where I wonder is like goals and objectives, like, I'm more than happy to help on solar ordinances and things like that, cause I know that realm. Then I get into the question of like, what's even allowed. So if we have something like this saying, Josh is gonna tackle this problem with this committee, not necessarily saying Josh is volunteering to do that, but I think that helps lay out a framework.
what do you see as priorities besides this list? Or how do you see?
Well, I agree with Rich, we never even agreed on this list, like,
I
this
mean,
was
these
a
are
slide.
just-
I thought we were coming up with a
I
list.
do,
though.
I
didn't know we
do
were-
think, that a lot of these items are items that are in the comp plan, right? The fiscal
Yeah.
year, that's definitely in the comp plan. Solid waste, definitely in the comp plan. Reval process, definitely in the comp plan. Capital improvement funding plan, comp plan. ARPA, that's new since this, that's not part of the comp plan. Obviously, we have to deal with it because there's a time limit on there. Long-term plan for the town hall, also part of the comp plan. Upgrades to the to Eureka and town office reconfiguration, upgrades to Eureka. And I agree with you where you're saying that those are one and the same. I would like to take that particular thing and go one step further with that and do municipal building assessment and what the best use of the buildings are. We went over and we looked at the Public Works building, right? And Calvin's office is the size of this entire building. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but not by a lot, right? There's a lot of space over there. Are we using that space the most efficiently and the best way possible? I don't know. I'm not choosing to take that particular thing on, but maybe that's something Josh is interested in. Maybe that's something Rich is interested in. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking at doing, is like, I think, if not everybody is interested, then that's their own prerogative, but when I'm looking at this list, I'm motivated and I want to get some stuff done. And so, I'm happy to take it on.
I understand that, I just don't understand how we're attacking it. Like, for example, my impression tonight was, hey, these are some ideas that were left from us from the previous board, and also that reside in the comp plan. What other ideas do we have? Okay, we got another 7 or 8 that we wanna add to. How are we gonna start with A, B, C, and D, and how are we gonna formulate a plan, a course of action for each one laid out? Whether that's the trash, or whether, because tonight, to me, that doesn't help resolve really our plan, because we don't have anything that, we weren't really told anything. They're gonna buy new trucks, they're gonna buy new this.
No, I agree 100% with you. I wanna hear what other options are. What does it look like? Or the other thing that I would love to know is that, what is the cost per resident that trash collection actually costs? These are the kinds of things. Who wants to do the data on that? We need a person that's gonna be a point person.
Well, we have the data.
Right,
From
but
23,
that'll
we just
come.
need to divide it by the number of households.
Right,
and
and
the
then,
cost.
right, you're gonna end up getting a price, that's how the RFP will be structured, is you'll get a price for that.
Right, so that when we have that information, we can then make an educated decision about,
Yeah.
do we wanna potentially go to the town
Right.
with, this is what it basically is costing per house for trash, and this is what it looks like,
Yep.
what your tax bill looks like, if we don't
Well, right, but
continue
that-
to collect trash.
Right, but right now, you're down in the layers of the project, right? But what's the main project ideas that we have, that I know you're saying you'll take on the comp plan, we can go through it, at the next meeting, and go through and list all those things, and then prioritize them. And then each one of those becomes a project, basically, and eventually that project gets handed to Jerry. So it becomes, granted, we may do footwork to do some research, but the finalization of that project to be presented back to us needs to go to somebody in the staff eventually, to go and hand back for us to make, I'll say, a ruling on, that it goes to town meeting, or we do something, just do it, right, if it's a low cost, kill, and just go execute it that way. So at the higher level, again, back, other than the comp plan, are there any other subjects that we need to put on this
The
list?
fee schedule, definitely.
Because I agree with this, I'll say this matrix format, we do this weekly.
Yeah.
125 Navy people, so it's the same type of list of who gave the action, and who's got the action, and who's funding it also comes into play, and then who really ultimately executes the plan. Some of it becomes plan, some of it becomes just do it, some of it becomes research, more research, depending on what the subject is. So I'm very familiar with this format, and I agree, it's a good way to put everything down at a high level. But then each one tick it off, you get a project plan, and you boil it down until you get to a point where you wanna buy something or do something,
Mhm.
right? That's really what it comes down to. Joe?
Yeah, I think what would be helpful is if we all just said what we think are important goals and objectives, and we got them written down.
Yeah.
And then we then set up a meeting where we can either have it facilitated and figure out, have a discussion about how that's prioritized, or we can do that ourselves. And then we start making those plans and figuring out the implications, you know, if it's gonna be a town staff problem, if there's gonna be opportunities to bring in temporary, chase a grant with GP cog, have them do it. So I think we don't wanna put the cart before the horse, but at step one, I think we just go around, we share what we think are our goals and objectives, and we get them written down. So,
Yeah, a couple, 2-3 items from each individual.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
think that's a great idea. I'd be happy to write them on the board.
because I know everyone's really passionate about ideas, but I don't want us to like jump into like, well, what's Jerry gonna do on the 5th Tuesday of this month, because we're talking about this plan right now, you know? So I mean, I can start just with some things that I find important that we can write down, or
Just in case.
I don't know if you wanna go around the room, Joe, or what.
We
I
can.
just spitfire a couple, two
That's why
things.
there's two things out.
And then give people, we could write that list up and give people like a little time and, go over that list, and then we'll prioritize the list moving forward. That's how I would, and that's what I thought we were doing tonight.
Yeah.
So,
Can I put fee
Yeah,
schedule?
this
Because
confused me
that's
too.
one
I
of
forgot.
my-
No, this was, yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So, things that I'm interested in, Heather,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna list things even though I know some of them are being worked on, because I like to put things on the to-do list that I'm already working on.
Mhm.
Solar ordinance is an important thing to me, as well as the cell phone tower ordinance, you know,
Are they one, do you feel like they're one and the same, or should they be listed separately?
separately.
Not one and the same, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, yeah. Another thing that's obviously important to me is the housing ordinance. I should note that I'm not listing these in any order of significance. And the long-term planning for trash and recycling. And then kind of the last two things that are important to me are, rules for, I don't know if I'm allowed to eat a sandwich at this meeting, or if we're to call it
I know,
a
I
shirt,
brought-
or anything,
I
you know.
brought blueberries
it's
and
one of those,
I haven't eaten them, I agree.
you know, so, just rules.
How about like policies and procedures? Do you feel like
Yeah,
that's?
and I think that that's one of those things that you get it lifted, it's a heavy lift once, and then every board can kind of accept or reject bits and pieces of it. And then, the ad committee, and,
Ag committee? Oh, agricultural. Is that what you
Yeah.
mean?
yeah, and then we know from George saying there's 35 people whose footprint of their house is now in resource protection, and I just was wondering what the options are for helping streamline their process if they need to do a small expansion or whatever. George kind of responded, and the planning board kind of are already working on that a little bit, but just some sort of like,
Like how to
Direction.
handle?
yeah. So these are just things that are, some of these big, some of these small, some of these already being worked on, but these are things that are in my head that I think maybe other people's heads.
I'm gonna say new, right? Is that a more accurate way to say that? New
I would-
residences,
I would-
right?
You might wanna leave that as all.
I was gonna say all.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because whatever you come up with.
There's some
should
people had
be-
questions about what's this mean for the business, my business. I know I'm
Okay.
grandfathered, but does it
I'll just put residence,
grandfathered in the future, but those sorts of things. Those are the ones on my head.
Go, Josh.
I mean, for me, it's the transition from the calendar to fiscal budget year, I know that was a big thing for Kevin, and I think he ended up at some point convincing me that, and then the conversation tonight is,
Yeah, gets us ahead of that.
Yep.
I agree.
I figured Josh would say trash.
I've been staying away from that subject.
do you receive it good?
I did well.
You
I
did,
kept my
you
mouth
did
shut
very
because
well.
It was off topic. I came close when there was a talk about we're gonna fix it, how the hell do you talk to them, but I kept my mouth shut. Since unless I go to Jerry, I don't get a response. That's why you all have to suffer through it now, you don't try.
I'm sorry.
And I think that following up with the comp plan and making sure we not necessarily meet the goals, but at least set a plan on how to meet what's coming up, isn't this?
Comp plan review, comp plan status review.
Sure.
I think, well, there you go.
However you wanna phrase it.
Get my turn.
Next.
I don't wanna put too many on.
You know, for me, the biggest one is getting to a fiscal year. I've always been a big, proponent of that. You know, that would be, I would say, a quasi, you know, short-term,
Mhm.
goal. A long-term goal, say, over the course of the next 4 to 5 years would be the waste, because I think we need to figure out what direction we're going in terms of waste. Whether that's gonna be like a Yarmouth situation where everybody's responsible for finding their own, or using a group like Acelo, or everybody's getting a dump, something of that nature, or maybe another individual, another company. We haven't had luck with that over the years, but in the past, when we did have bids for another company, they were basically asking what these guys are asking us: buy us a new truck and we'll get your service.
That was a little alarming to me. And then I was like, I'm just gonna ask this question because, yeah,
So
okay,
they're-
not what we're doing,
yeah.
sorry, but that really, like, I was
That's what
alarmed
it
at
is,
that,
and
yeah.
that's what they're getting at.
Yeah.
As far as, I
I-
agree with Heather's concerns with the comp plan, and I would take it to a level of not necessarily trying to decipher and determine where we're at as far as execution of the current comp plan, but more so in fact, if the current comp plan is actually still the comp plan that we should be using.
Right, I brought that up before. Well, so I'm just gonna leave that as comp plan status review,
Yeah,
cause it could be,
well, some items could fall out,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we say that's not
Or-
in our best interest.
or
anymore.
like Christine was saying, are you making decisions on the most updated information? And maybe for some of those things we aren't, like the housing section of it, which was the example,
Yeah.
is pretty outdated at
And I
this
think
point.
that's why, it's not because of the comp plan, but I think since the pandemic and so forth, things have been so fluid. And as far as, different senses of urgency have been directed towards bigger problems that may reside in the comp plan that
Mhm.
haven't been executed yet, that unfortunately just go to the wayside.
Right, right, I agree.
Shoot, 2018
So-
feels like a lifetime.
Trust me.
So, I like the idea, and I think looking at the usage of buildings is, you know, kind of goes into,
Did I put that on here? Oh, I didn't write that.
yeah, no, that's.
Building use assessment?
Building usage,
Is
yeah,
that-
building usage, and, you know, in that, I know that we already are looking at, you know, upgrading the Eureka Center, but, you know, the Eureka Center upgrade needs quite a bit of work to get that to a status, very usable, like a foundation would be helpful.
Oh.
So it's a little bit bigger than, I think, just adding
You just be
technology.
greedy.
I am,
Mhm.
yeah. But we should look at all the building usage. We've had that discussion before. I mean, there was a proposal on the table at one point for redoing the town offices back many years ago. So it's probably time to dust that off and look at that.
We did a minor rehab,
Remind
2019 or something.
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah, 2016.
Office furniture.
These new chairs.
Fiscal budget, definitely on my top priority budget, my top priority list to get us, you know, so that that allows us, and again, you know, some of the reasoning behind this gets us ahead of the curve. Part of what you're saying, Heather, about getting out ahead of things provides us the ability to look forward fiscally before it's upon us, or we're in it, we're in the midst of it before we make a decision on whether we're going or not.
Which is
So-
exactly what's happening with the trash
Yeah,
contract,
yeah,
right? They're
everything.
like saying, we want a decision by whatever, but we can't give them that.
And, you know, the policies and procedures, you know, I love policies and procedures, but they also can be a pain. They need to be careful with that. I do think that we should probably think about looking at those a little closer, working on that. I agree with, you know, the ordinances, you know, we don't have an ordinance for something new that comes out. That should be on somebody's list to go after, because you can end up with something you really don't want unexpectedly. on those.
A long time.
I think the fee schedule, I think that's gonna work its way out, just my opinion, just because I agree that ordinances and backup data to charge a fee are important, but, we need to keep on top of that, so we don't fall behind like we have been in the past, so. Just some of the, and then we have a whole list of things, but I think, my other thought on this, just in general, at a higher level with all these, is that, the capital improvement, take a look at the capital improvement, committee, I'll say, bylaws or policies, because there was a methodology for those policies and procedures being brought up. I think a lot of those, we might be able to just kind of slide over and adopt, plagiarize essentially for things that, for this list maybe, on how to rank and rate them. There's some good categories in there that probably apply to a lot of these things, like the CIP committee would do. So we should probably almost use something like that, or look at that, modify it for our uses. Because a lot of that footwork's been done by folks in the town already.
Right.
We'd be remiss not to reuse it.
So speaking to that point, right,
Yeah.
if that were something that we decided to do, like that is a policy, they rank according to whatever, right? And so if this board adopted a policy that was the way that goals were going to be established or whatever, that doesn't leave when the board members leave. That stays behind as a structure for other board members to come in and follow.
Well, the next board could change the
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
of
could
course.
change the policy.
I think it just sets it up so a board
So it
can
can't
show
leave.
up, they can adopt the policy, modify policy, but
But
there's
that's-
something in hand.
Yeah,
But I think that springboards the approach on the projects though, that, even if we don't have a policy that allows us to use that format, we could still use that as a
Yeah,
basis
yeah,
for the
absolutely.
initial format and go forward. And we come up with a policy saying, hey, this worked out pretty good, let's make this the norm moving forward. Then that we can do that if that's how we end up, or if we like it, right? People might not like it.
so I just put fee schedule as my thing, and a lot of these other things are on my list of things. And then I just have to, in my other paper that I gave you, I just have to go back always to transparency and communication. And the way that they structured this is a jump off of this, where whatever the particular category is, this is where the communication is found for that particular thing. And this is right on their website, so that anybody that goes there can go to whatever this particular category is, and they know that this is how they're gonna receive communication about that particular category. And I think that anything that we can do to make town government as transparent as possible and easy for residents to seek information. I can't even remember what it was that I was trying to find, but I went into our search bar on, I do remember now. I went into the search bar and I put in land use ordinance, and I automatically got kicked to the 2019 edits, which is not our most up-to-date ordinance. So if I'm a person that's going in there trying to figure out what the rule is about whatever, and I search land use ordinance, and I go to the 2019, and that's not even the most current one, there's just a lot of, it's very cumbersome. And so I think if we can work on transparency and communication between
Is that
boards.
transparency or what, I agree with you that we should work on that. My question is, do we have an issue that's not even defined up there as far as the way our site is operated and maintained?
Yeah.
Is that really what the issue is? It's not necessarily being transparent, we're just, the information's not necessarily, and how
Easily
are we,
accessible.
Right.
how are we monitoring that?
Right, and so I'm not, again, I feel like sometimes when I say things, it's coming across as like, a insult. It's not that at all. When I'm suggesting these things, I'm suggesting them because I see a potential issue, and so now here's my overlapping area of how we're gonna address that.
I mean, there's different ways you can.
When you go to the website, land use ordinance adopted April 1 is.
No, I know that that's there, but if you go, now type land use ordinance in the search bar and see what comes up.
So I know that, yeah, there's a number of ways you can design the website, and that's just a matter of what our preference is.
We're getting the weeds.
Exactly, I'm not trying to talk about the website,
Yeah.
my thing that I'm writing down is communication and transparency.
Mhm.
And that encompasses all avenues and areas of our town government, including boards. And some of that is gonna come back to policies and procedures, like, so, Jerry, I feel like you
Yeah.
deserve a voice up
I
here.
do. So,
We wanna hear it.
I wanna just go down through the schedule and just give you my thoughts. The fee schedule I'm good with because this is something the board can do. That's what you do. You assess them, right? Solar ordinances, any ordinance, you've got a planning board and a planner that's already working on that. So my question would be, I know you're interested in it, but how are you gonna insert yourself into that process? And I would be careful there with that. Just let them do their work, let them present to you what you're doing and give them direction from there. Because you've got staff that works on that. Long-term trash, yeah, we need to have that discussion because I need direction on where you wanna go with it. So we put it out to bid the way we wanna put it out to bid, that's what we can do. Policies and procedures, yeah, you're talking personnel policies, I'm not really sure. We do have policies that we need to address, like our leave policy is a little old. It's based on days that we work and not hours, it needs to be changed, so there's plenty of work there. Ag committee, fine, you wanna do an ag committee, that's resource protection and how to handle that, we have staff that handles that. Again, I know you're all interested in it, but how does a select board member get involved with that when you have, it's kind of taken care of. You have folks, professionals, staff, educated,
The people.
40-year veterans working on this stuff, so maybe you're better off doing something else if you want to get more done, right? Fiscal year, that's us. Comp plan, that's us. Building assessment, yeah, that's us, there's no real committee to do that, we're working on that. Communications and transparency, I kinda understand what Rich was saying, when you stop throwing the word transparency around, it's almost sounding like we're not, but we are.
So I'll give you an example of transparency, okay? There's been a couple of instances, not only on this board, I know that this was why a member of another board was here tonight to address the situation, but then didn't, I'm not sure why, whatever, doesn't matter. Where, one or a few members of a board will get information, it's kinda like what happened with Casella last year, right? And so what I would be proposing as one of the things that I would like to address in terms of transparency is that when, just like the school board does, right? You're not individually emailing individual board members. It's select board at, so that when we come to the table and we have to have an educated discussion and there's not, some people who know some of the information, some people who know none of the information. Everyone is privy to the same information all the time to be able to have an informed, educated discussion. Yes.
Doesn't that, and I'm not trying to be a nice guy here, but doesn't that contradict basically what we were talking about in terms of breaking off as individuals and working on our own, the boards and so forth? Aren't you saying that you don't want that to happen?
So
First you said you want it to
someone
happen,
asked
now
a
you want-
someone asked a question, and a town staff answered the question. And when the question was answered, the chair of another board was CC'd on the answer, and none of those other board members received the question or the answer. So then when that comes to their table and they're having a discussion about it, that one board member that was CC'd has that information in that context.
Was it the chair?
And everybody else, that it wasn't only the chair. It was two people on the board, and it was not the vice chair.
So if by that rationale, if we split up, let's say you were leading a policy group, and your guys are having intermittent discussions amongst each other, you're gonna forward everything in that group to every single select board member every time?
No.
Okay.
So, I don't know how to communicate this better than what I'm saying.
So I think the issue is that email you were discussing regarding the planning board should have been sent by the chair to the other members. For example, if our chair gets an email about an issue that's coming up and a response, I think it should be forwarded to all of us. Maybe not the question
Right.
and the answer, but the answer with the question should be
And
forwarded.
we've seen that in the past, that's how how we've operated in the past, is that we usually get the information from the chair if there's an issue that the chair has to answer. You know, if there's.
So if
some-
let's say that a resident sends an email,
Yeah.
right, about something that they have a complaint about, or, you know, whatever, maybe it's not even a complaint,
Yeah.
right? And that goes to me only. And then I come to this board and I say, residents have brought up this issue, right? And you haven't read that email, it's been said in this board, well, they can do this, or they can do that. They came to a person that is elected to represent residents, right? That, I feel, if you go to, it used to be this way, I don't know if it still is or not, that if you go on the website and you wanna email the select board to do something, it says select board at. I hope that that's still the case. I don't know if it is or not. If it is, great. If it's not, that's the same way it is with the school board. You wanna send feedback to the school board, it's school board at, and it goes to all the members of the board immediately. That's the way that it should work for every single board.
Right.
No, that's true, Heather, but there are sidebars that an individual can bring something to. And if a member of the school board says you contact a member and says, hey, I really don't like the new DEI policy, they would probably refer you to email the board.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't come across as, hey, I had someone ask me, I'm representing my constituents, so it doesn't look like, that's what it's right in their, welcoming packet on how to handle those type of things. And that, I think that's what you're talking about, but again, if somebody emails you, you should say, well, if you really want to take this to another level, you should email the board and you can put it on the agenda or you can come in for a public comment.
So here's one more example of this, okay? And I'm not, their thing came out about the housing, answers. When they voted on it, legislation voted on it, right?
Affordable housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I asked a clarifying question to MMA, the person who sent the email. I'm not sure if there were 2 town staff people that were involved in also asking the question. Their response went to the planning board chair and the staff member and another town staff member, right? And then when I asked the question, I CC'd Jerry because I felt like that was appropriate for him to know that I was asking a clarifying question up to MMA, right? So I was forwarded the answer that went to the 2 staff members and the planning board chair. I feel like that is a situation where everybody on the planning board should have received that answer. So in that situation, it could have just been planning board at, and then everybody on that board has the same information and the same knowledge, so that when they come to the table and they're having that discussion, they all know the same information. Isn't that right? I mean, I don't know, am I wrong
And
here?
that's on the chair or the person who
Right.
received the email.
Right.
And if it's warranted to bring up, she might just ask a question of, that's why you don't want to overwhelm things, you just
Yeah.
ask a question.
If
And
it
yet-
needs to go.
And the other thing is,
Right.
we need to remember that we're a board, we're not town councilors, we're not somebody that works for MMA. We're a board that supposed to work cohesively together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really it. So if someone has a question and they want to bring it to the board, they should bring it to the board. If they want you to bring it to the board, that's fine, but you should forward their name and so forth and say, hey, this particular person wants to bring this, but they would like to remain anonymous.
No, it was me, I had the question.
Yeah, I know,
I
your
asked-
question wasn't towards like something that we're looking for, it was just a question, right? So not everybody needs to know what Heather's question is.
We can just
So-
move on. I feel like I need to be done.
So the one thing I will say is that, you know, if you're questioning something for MMA for your own education as well, that's fine.
Exactly.
Right, but if you're representing the board, the select board of Durham asking your question, that's quite frankly off limits. That needs to come through me. I'm the board chair. If we have an official business thing to do with MMA, or some clarification for the town, then the board and the chair needs to be aware of what that is, and I send the email to MMA if we need some clarifying, or we have Jerry send that email.
So
It's
this
not-
builds into
it's-
us needing
it-
policies, because when we
Well,
ran for chair, it was said, you do nothing extra besides
So he
facilitate
has
the
no extra
meeting.
powers.
I have
But
no
then he's
extra
now saying
powers,
you can't
but-
ask, you gotta go through me, so this is just where this policies and procedures is gonna be helpful.
Yeah, but that's just, go,
Just
go,
for
go.
clarification though, he's saying if you're asking as a board,
As
she's
a board.
asking as her own individual, she doesn't
That's
have to
fine,
ask
she doesn't have to
anybody
come
on
to
this.
me.
Right, again.
If she
this
finds
is just
something
where
out
the
that she wants the
policies and
board,
procedures will be helpful.
but if she finds something out that the board needs to know, by all means, come to us, right? So that's okay, you just can't represent yourself at the board. Just like these committees we talk about in town. We can't go as individuals and then represent the board, even I can't do that. They can ask questions of you, but you can't say the board's decision is this.
Of course,
Right?
and
No,
I
no,
think
no,
we're
I'm just
all
saying,
really clear
but-
on that.
Right, but that's just, any influence at all of these committees, we need to be careful. And MMA is the same, right? It's just, you still need to, again, the board needs to decide that it is important enough to contact some outer agency, and then we go and do that formal process.
Okay,
Which is either
so,
through Jerry or directly through other, we don't want Jerry in it for some reason, then it's through another avenue. But
so this is something that I will address through policies and procedures and give options, because when I just took that elected training that I said was so useful, they said at least 15 times, if you have any questions, please reach out. If your town is a member of our services, you are welcome to ask questions at any point, at any time.
That's correct.
Okay.
You just said that.
Yeah.
He just said the opposite.
No,
He just
no,
said that if,
no, you can't represent yourself as the board. You can't make a decision on behalf of the board by contacting these people.
well, of course.
But, okay, so I think we're going around in circles, but, yeah. And so I just wanna make sure that we aren't doing that. That's all I'm cautioning.
For some reason, I think you were taking it, what he's saying, or whatever, me or
Yeah.
whatever, saying that you can't ask you can ask questions of
All
whoever
day
you want,
long.
as long as you don't infer that, hey, we as a board have this. or,
Right.
Hey, I'm asking for the board. But if
Right.
you wanna call
Those words will
MMA.
never come out of
No,
my
I
mouth.
hear you, but that's all he's saying.
That's all
I
I'm
think this
saying,
is
I'm
just
just
getting mixed
reminding
up.
everybody of that.
He's just saying, like, if we're gonna ask as a board, it has to come through us collectively. We can't ask, hey, this is, select board member Rich George of the town of Durham, and I wanna talk to the vice president of Casella because I'm upset about something.
Got it.
That's all.
That's
That's all.
not
That's all
all
he's
what
saying.
All I'm just
Yeah.
making sure we're not
Well,
doing
that's an
that.
explanation.
It just happened to see that tonight. It had nothing to do with you, I promise.
But this all does go back to the sharing of information. This meeting took place with the chair of the board and none of the other members. I watched the board meeting where decisions needed to be made. And only the chair had the information. And so now here we are revisiting this conversation again as an entire board, which thank you, I appreciate, right? That is the situation that I want to avoid, right there. I don't want one member of the board, no matter who it is, to be the holder of the information that we all need to be able to make decisions. That's all I'm saying.
I think on this board, an individual would get called out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, I mean, there are some,
And they should.
And they should have, I've done it in the past, if you watched
I
board
know.
meetings, I've done it.
I-
So I agree with you 1,000%. I think we're all in agreement, is what I'm saying. This board has been intact since the 1700s, I believe, and it's, for the most part, done a pretty decent job.
Josh, what were you gonna say?
no, Jerry,
Go ahead, Jerry.
So back to the time when only the chair had the information. We have to put it in context because we were working on budgets. We needed a budget number. Chris was only available at that time. He could have just spoken to me, but as the chair of the board, I called Kevin in and said, Kevin, can you come in as just another set of ears? There was nothing nefarious about it. It wasn't underhanded. It wasn't not being transparent. It just was that situation at
Right.
hand that I didn't.
No, I'm not accusing you of anything.
No, I understand, but we had to move, and I just, so if I had the information, and Kevin has the information, and Calvin was part of that conversation too, hopefully between the three of us, we can tell the same story versus only one person hearing it.
Yeah, you want more than one person.
It's just a time for, it wasn't meant to, you know, alleviate the other board members. It was just, we gotta move on this, because we got stuff to do, we gotta get it done. And I took it upon myself, Chris was available, let's get in here and get that information. And I just want us to be careful about the transparency, because since I've been here, everything has been transparent. There's been no hiding of anything. It just sometimes a procedure may not get followed by not maybe including the board on something, but I don't think it's done on purpose to try to hide anything. I just think, oh, well, I asked a question, and to the point, if we're gonna do something like this, and board members are gonna be leading or whatever that is, you're gonna be asking questions of people that the other board members are not gonna be privy of, and that's okay.
Yep.
As long as you're not saying this is what the board feels. It's just educating, learning, and bringing that education and learning to the other board members so the board can make decisions as a board.
Let's just be noted, when we've had people on this board be part of committees like that in the past, and they have been publicly attacked because they were part of a conversation and it was looked upon frowningly by members of the community. So that's what you open yourself up to.
So those are the discussions that you're gonna have to have too, to see if that's the road that you wanna go down. I'm okay with whatever you wanna do. My job is to administer what you all wanna get done.
Right. Our job is to act as a board.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's all good stuff. Cause as a manager, and I hear things not being transparent, that could be a reflection of me, and that's not me, not being not transparent, cause I'm an open book, right? So that word makes me nervous when it comes to what we do, and saying we need to be more transparent. I don't know how we could be more transparent than we are, actually.
Well, I'll give you an example that doesn't have anything to do with you,
Yeah.
right? The planning board just approved a subdivision application, and there was no public hearing, which is within their right, they don't have to hold a public hearing, but it hasn't been 30 days since the approval, which is within the appeals process, and there are neighbors they had no idea that the approval went through, right? And the work is already being done. That doesn't feel transparent to those people that are abutters. That they received no notice, there was no public hearing, there was no opportunity for them to speak in public on an issue that's kind of a big one. And so that, to them, doesn't feel like transparent government. For the agenda to say no public comment will be taken, that doesn't feel
I think if we have a problem.
like
with
an open and
enforced
transparent
procedures,
process.
We should have an executive session and you can,
Right.
you can run it, but we shouldn't be doing it in this format. We're way off topic of what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
And as far as I'm concerned, we have enough things up here to discuss, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll take a picture of this and send it to everybody so we can
I'll second
memorialize
it.
it.
I'll second adjournment. All
Can I
in
just
favor?
ask,
Sure.
Go ahead.
there's
Question?
no executive session?
No executive session.
I don't need an executive session. Anybody else? No? All in favor? All right. Carries, we are adjourned.
You did amazing. And this is beautiful. She did good. She deserves like a,
She did, I felt bad,
Yeah.
I said adjourn.
Well, no, we'll send it on.